cloud computing. We're going to discuss platform as a service, and this is something available in sort of one of the new hot topics is cloud and platform service and so on. And we're looking for interest and comments in this. So we're going to do an overview of Cloud Foundry, a discussion of how the Cloud Foundry works on Amazon, Pharaoh, and Gemstone, perhaps. So with our hosting arrangements, of course, self-hosting is where you just do everything yourself in your own hardware in your own data center. Data center is where someone else provides the network, power, air conditioning. Infrastructure as a service is where someone else provides the utilities and the hardware, CPU, RAM, disk. And that's sort of what you get from Amazon and Rackspace and a few others. Platform as a service is something where the utilities and hardware and then a stack of operating system, web server, runtime, framework, and so on. And then, of course, software as a service is the things like Salesforce and other things where they actually have the application as well. But we're interested in the platform as a service where we, as the programmers, get to write the app and then someone else takes care of the rest of it. So with Cloud Foundry, you can push your application to the cloud, and it's the responsibility of the platform service provider to manage the web requests that come in, route them to your application. And if you scale, you just say increase the number of systems that I am running, and the router and the load balancer will send the requests out. So you could have the client web browser, you can have the Cloud Foundry command line tools that we'll see, all then goes into a firewall that then gets routed to someone who's running them, managing it, and so on. All this is done for you. So, of course, Ruby, other popular languages like that, we see support for that. That's relatively easy. There's the Ruby virtual machine, the Ruby libraries, the Ruby frameworks, and these things are just available. You launch, and it imports everything and goes. Java, very similar. You provide source code, jar files, frameworks, Spring, Lift, Grails, and so on is just installed. Smalltalk, of course, for reasons we know and love, is different than these others. And the challenge relates to the monolithic image, where everything is in one. And rather than having just source code that you submit and merge, you just have everything together. So we could try to separate it out, and I've tried this. The other thing is you could just push the whole image up to the server and let it do it that way. So sometimes people are confused, what is Cloud Foundry? CloudFoundry.com is a commercial offering by a company named Pivotal, which was spun off from VMware, which is where we used to be. VMware, EMC, GE are the partners in on Pivotal. Then there's cloudfoundry.org, which is an open source place with the framework there. So there's the framework that we're using. Now, web services from Amazon, there's lots of power and flexibility here. People, say which cloud hosting providers should I use? I'm not trying to give advice on that. I picked Amazon just because I wanted to work with something. It was big, and it has lots of features. And so, if you find something else that works for you, that's great. I have no opinion on that matter. But Amazon has their global infrastructure with availability zones in regions. So there are regions all over the world. 3 of them in North America, 1 in South America, 1 in Europe, a couple in Asia, one in Australia. So you can pick something that's close to you or outside the prying eyes of people you want to avoid. So a list of the regions, and then within each region there's an availability zone where Amazon has actually built separate data centers with separate power, separate communication lines, and so on that are in a geographical region, but they're located separately. So presumably a disaster in one building or on one site will not take out the region. It will only take out a zone within the region. So you can, but there's faster network connectivity within a region than there is between regions. IP addresses within Amazon, there's something called an elastic IP, which is kind of an awkward word. It's elastic in that it can move between machines, but it's fixed from our point of view in the sense that it's one IP address that can be reassigned to different machines. And so one of the things you can do with Amazon is just say, I want to rent, for I think it's $1 a month, I want to rent an address. And then that address, even if I don't have a machine running, I want to keep it around, which we'll see in my demo. I didn't actually do that. I just took whatever one was assigned. And so the demo that I have isn't the same IP address as the host is now because I stopped it and restarted it. But you can then just say, I want an IP address. Then they have a domain name server. You can say this address with this name. And so then you can stop machines, move the machine around, and it'll still be there. Amazon has something called Elastic Block Store. And this is essentially persistent disks that can be moved from VM to VM. You can have multiple disks per VM, and that gives you ways of monitoring things. This is too small to really read, but it is a list of some of the instances types that you can get. So when you ask for a virtual machine, you can get one that has one CPU, 1.7 gigabytes of RAM, 160 gig hard disk, low network performance, up to 16 CPUs, 60 gig of RAM, and 10 gigabit Ethernet, and so on. So various configurations, and you pay, of course, different amounts of money for each one of these. There's a command line, a programming API, as well as a web management console. So let us take a look, and I'm going to see, we've got a few minutes left. For a couple reasons. One, so that I could have my hands free and talk. Another is I wasn't confident of how the network connectivity was. So earlier today I actually recorded this. So I'm going to play back something that I've recorded earlier today. So this is a demo, but it's live but tape delayed. So we're going to go to Amazon, and we're going to go to the console, and then that will bring up this page. I sign in using the link provided. I give my name, password, log in to the server. That gives me information of all the services that they provide. By default, I'm in a global region, but I can pick EC2, which is their cloud computing environment. And I am now in the Sao Paulo region, so that is where South America is the region I'm in here for this demo. And I can then go to instances, and this is what virtual machines do I have running. So I select instances, and currently I have no instances running, so I launch one. It says, well, pick a machine. I'm going to go to the community AMIs, available machines, and I'm going to say I want to find a machine that's available that will do Smalltalk. So it says, oh, well, there's this Cloud Foundry with Pharaoh that's available. So I say, well, that's the one I want. So we select it, launch it, and it says, how much RAM, what size of machine. So I want M1 small, so that's 1.7 gig. I'm going to do some configuration on it, and one of the things I need to provide is a user ID and password, or not a user ID, but a password, because AMIs are not allowed to have default passwords. So each new machine has to have a new password. So I'm going to go to a random number generator, pick up a random number, and then go in and say password : paste. So that's the password that I'm going to use for this virtual machine. We're going to look at the size. It's an 8 gig disk, and I'm going to set it up so when I'm all done, it will delete, rather than charging me for keeping it around. I'm going to... Yeah. QuickTime. Oh, well, looks like we hit a dark spot. So I'm going to create a security group. This is the firewall that Amazon provides. And so Amazon has a firewall that allows us to specify what's going to be available. So I'm going to enable in my machine, not inside my machine, but out before it gets to my machine. I'm going to allow SSH, HTTP, and ping. So receive and echo. So echo requests can come in. So these are the things that I'm going to allow, and I'm going to say they can come from anywhere, which is arguably unsecure. You could actually tie this down to say only certain IP addresses can come into your machine. So, you know, you're a little open, but that's okay. You're going to have to pay. This isn't free because you've asked for a little bit more RAM. You've got your security set up, and then you've got some the user data, which is where we put the password information. So, having configured it, we're just going to say launch. And so with it launched, I also need to get a key pair. So there's a pair of keys that's used for connecting to the system. And this is, again, security, a public-private key. So I can do passwordless SSH with a private key. So the system is launching, and we can then go look at the system, and in a moment it will be starting. While that's happening, we can go talk about what we're going to send up there. So I'm going to bring my private key in to this directory that I've set up. I'm then going to see what the IP address is. So here's the IP address for this machine. And so I can have that information. Now, the application I want to run is peer. So peer is, right now, I just took the Faro double click and said, okay, on this address, peer is running. Okay, well, that's the whole double click, including the VM and lots of stuff. That's not how we're going to push it up to the server. Instead, what we're going to do is take the image, the changes, and the source, as well as the files that peer uses. So we've got a few files that we're going to put up there, including something for startup. Startup is the code that we use to say, here's the port number peer should listen on. So we can't always be on 8080 because someone else might be using that port. So we're going to be on a special port. So for example, it could be 8082. And then I have a command that says open cog with this image, use this startup script as it launches to set the port number, and then pass in the port number. So I can then try launching that, and so there's a sources, changes, image, and then I have a test shell script that will launch it, and so here you can see it's on 8082 instead of 80, and so now we can look at 2 and refresh, and peer shows up there. So that shows us that we have a Smalltalk image where we can vary the port number, and just the image changes and so on. So those are the pieces that we need, and so now we're going to go back and take a look at our running server, and we have a port number that it's on, or was when I did the recording, and so I can ping to that and it replies. It's satisfied. I can also go and SSH to it. Now the sample that they give us has SSH as root, but I'm using an Ubuntu image, and Ubuntu, the shared one that they have, doesn't allow you to do that. So I'm going to log in as Ubuntu. It says, do you recognize that? Do you want to continue? Yes. Well, it turns out I forgot to change my private key to being read-only. So we'll chmod our private key to 400, and then we can log in, we can get there, and we're now logged into Ubuntu, and we have our cloud controller pieces running. So it automatically starts everything we need. And at this IP address, everything is just up and running as part of that. Now, we're going to take that IP address and substitute a few scripts we have. For Cloud Foundry, from the client, you need to pass some things up in. And so I'm going to go copy my password and put that in as the key here. So this is just a text file. Now I'm going to take these lines and copy them into a terminal. So we're going to set the target to this server that's out there. So I'm in my local machine where I have my Pharaoh image. I'm going to set the target. I'm going to authenticate. And there's a bug that it reports an error, but it really doesn't have a problem. I'm going to say, this is the place I want to be. This is what I want to do. And now I want to push my application. Now, Cloud Foundry has some scripts that are on the client and says, okay, what are you going to name it? How many do you want to run? How much memory do they need? What IP address are they on, host name? What subdomain do you want to use for this particular application? And then it has this uploading thing. Now, I'm running this at a faster speed because it took a long time to upload. But you can see that it's pushing things up. Right there, I'm doing about 100K a second. But eventually, not too long a time, it has finished uploading. It's going to start. Now it's up on the server. Now it's ready to launch my Pharaoh app. So it takes it, it starts it, and then we have a successful push. And here's an IP address or a URL for it. So now I can take this URL, paste it into my browser, and Peer is running on the cloud in an Amazon, where I just had a Smalltalk image that I developed locally, and when I liked it, I just said push, and off it went to the cloud, and now it's running there. Okay, now this IP address isn't correct. What we need to do is instead this IP address. So, if you have your computer out and want to try on the Wi-Fi, this is live. peer2.54.207.17.20.xip.io. Okay, so that is out in the cloud, has been pushed to the cloud. So this is Peer, or this is Pharaoh, Smalltalk. We just develop locally, push it to the server, and the server manages the rest of it. Okay? So that's one thing. Now, of course, I'm very passionate about Smalltalk and happy to have peer working and Pharo and that sort of thing. But a little bit of my primary involvement is, of course, Gemstone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I have a Gemstone app here, and we have a few more minutes. I'm going to take a Gemstone and I'm going to start my Gemstone system with this app. And once that's running, so now that is running, I'm going to go to log in and say, launch something called Web Tools. So Web Tools will start up a script and it will do some things. And this is all running on my laptop. Eventually we can put this in the cloud as well, but there's limits on how much I can do in a short demo. And so I can, actually I'm going to use Firefox for this. I can go to Firefox and I can say paste this URL. HTTPS Vienna is the name of my machine, and so on. So I've got some Firebug debugging. Now, a few things to notice here. We're using HTTPS. So this is secure sockets from the browser to Gemstone. So when you type in your user ID and password here, it is going over a secure channel between the browser and inside Gemstone. So I can log in then. And once I log in, actually we can see that there are some things that happen here. I'm logging the request, the GET request, the post. We log the login as an event. I can go and say, what are the current sessions that are running? And so here are some sessions. What code is out there? So I can go and I can bring up a browser on some code. And so, for example, there's Web Tools, a web server, and start secure server at port. So here is the Smalltalk code that is running the system there. And you can interact with a Gemstone system that's out on a web through a web browser without anything required on the client, and have it be a secure channel and not have to deal with the local installs. So that's what I envision, and I'd like to, don't have it for this demo, but what I'd like to be able to do is show, the next challenge is to put something with Gemstone. So you can just launch an Amazon AMI and then just connect to it and start interacting with it. And it's a little hard to see down here at the bottom, but we're doing one request at a time for each mouse click, so we're not doing lots of traffic back and forth. It's only one request. And this took 46 milliseconds on the server, 28 milliseconds on the network, and 140 milliseconds on the client. And so if you had a slow network, the network would be longer, but the other things would be essentially the same. So that's where you would see things slow down. But here, we've addressed the issue of slow network between the client and server, which if you're using any of the other Gemstone tools, it's a problem. So that's what I have, and I think how are we doing on time? Discussion, comments?
I have two questions.
Yes.
First one is, first thing I thought when you pushed the Pharo image there was that I don't want to publish each time I want to publish a change, for example, something I don't want to upload the whole image.
Okay.
And in the next step you said, okay, so I put the Gemstone.
Yes.
Gemstone is prepared to be logged in and to be.
Yes.
So
One could do something similar with Pharo,
Okay.
so that would be one option. Another, and actually one of the earlier approaches that I took to this, the previous iteration, I didn't have you push the whole image. I had you push MCZ files, and with a script.
Okay.
Now, I think that that's a little bit more elegant from a Cloud Foundry, cloud management point of view. On the other hand, I got a little bit of, one of the things that the cloud salesmen want to tell you is that it operates just the same on the client and the server. You just do your development, and when you have it the way you want, it just moves it from the client to the server, and you don't have to change anything. And so when I went through the steps of you have to have MCZ files, you have to have a load script, we're back to the world where Smalltalk isn't an image, it's just an environment where you submit source files and it starts clean every time. So there's a balance there, but you've hit on one of the tensions that I've tried it both ways. I don't really have a strong preference. I'm open to suggestions. People who are interested in using this. We can create it to work either way. Very much. Other questions? Go ahead.
You might have a second one, which is what special needs do cloud service, which Verizon platform as a service, has to have for me to upload a Pharo image?
There needs to be something on the server that says that is listening for you to submit something. And so that's the piece that I've built into Cloud Foundry. Now, a variation on all of this is just moving up a level to the infrastructure where you manage the operating system, you manage the web server, you just log in with SSH. And I'm not sure which is best. I've gotten pushback on this. Some people have said, why are you wasting your time on doing all of this? Anyone who wants to deploy an app will want to control it themselves. I don't know. I'm not prepared to say. But part of it is there's this, magic around platform as a service and Cloud Foundry, and I wanted to see if it could play nice with Smalltalk. And one of the things, we've thought about kind of and has been mentioned in the community is, wouldn't it be nice if someone actually ran a server and you could just submit your Pharo image and have it just work? And so this is an example of how that might be done. So this is something that isolates. Each Pharo image is in it's not only on a virtual machine, but it's within a sandbox on a virtual machine. And so if you have two Pharo images, they can't see each other. They can't touch anything outside of their sandbox. So it's a sandboxing, it's something. There's other commands that we can do here. So we can say things like, app. So CF apps. Okay, so I can say, how many apps do I have running and what are they doing? And it goes out to the server and it says, well, you've got peer 2 is running, there's one instance of it. And so CF logs for peer 2. And it says, okay, well, I'm going to go out and get all the log files, and I'm going to give you a chance to see them. And so what Cloud Foundry gives you is a way of interacting without having to log on to the server. And so we can protect the server and keep the programmers stay off the server, but they can see the server, they can interact with it, they can get log files. So it's going to go get a list of the files that are in the app directory. And so, here's what we've got of our stuff that we can interact with. So Pharaoh, startup, things like that. So, okay, I think I'm probably...
Last question?
But I'd be delighted to talk, afterwards, all day tomorrow, whatever. This is something that I've been having fun with, and
One of your blogs or...
yes. So the yes, certainly one place to go for information is programminggems.wordpress.com. So this is Programming Gems on Gemstone, and so this is my where I record some of the things that I've been working on. Yes, it's sort of a play on words. But, and actually, I don't know how familiar you are with it. There's a well-known series of books entitled Programming Pearls, which is classic software engineering literature. And so I'm not so important as to be programming pearls, but I'm programming gems. Thank you.